All right, good afternoon, Mr. Silverman, or Dave Silverman.
Yeah.
We are here in your office in Cranford, New Jersey, of the office of the American Atheists. How are you doing this afternoon?
Very well. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you on. Can I ask you, what is your story like? Your story particularly, did you grow up in a religious family? Do you remember when you started becoming an atheist or doubting religion?
I remember it very clearly. I was raised Jewish by a Jewish mother and a closeted atheist father. And when I say closeted atheist, he was closeted to me. I thought he was Jewish. And I remember, you know, it was the standard stuff. It was it was very stereotypical. They were Reformed Jews. We had a lot of Christian friends. I had a Christian nanny back then. So I did, because I had a Christian nanny, I had Hanukkah and I had Christmas, because the Christian nanny would give me Christmas presents. So when I was very young, 6 years old, I started to double think whether or not Santa Claus was real. And I was six years old, and I devised a plan. And the plan was I knew that if Santa Claus wasn't real, I knew that my mother would know it. Okay? I knew that. I didn't know she would be the Santa Claus, but I knew my mother would know the truth. And I devised a plan. And the plan was to lie to my mother and tell her that I had asked Santa Claus for a thing. In this case, it was a train set. And if the train set came on Christmas, I knew there was no Santa Claus. I knew my mother was Santa Claus, or my father. It was a pretty good plan. And so in the back seat of my mother's car on my way to my grandmother's house, I leaned over the front seat and I told my mother that I had been to a mall and I had sat on Santa's lap and I asked Santa for a train set. And my mother said something along the lines of, "Well, you're too old to believe in that now." And I sat back in the back seat and I was like, "Yeah, I am too old to believe in that now. Of course there's no Santa Claus." And then, right in succession, I got Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, and God. All vanished right then and there. I realized they were all the same thing. And I realized that they were all fiction. And that was my first thought of clear atheism. That was my first clearly atheistic thought. Now, of course, my atheism hasn't been linear since I was 6 years old. And I kept asking questions. My mother didn't care that I didn't believe in God. So I went to Hebrew school anyways. And I was bar mitzvahed anyways. And I was confirmed anyways, and I have many stories about...
Bar mitzvahed and confirmed.
Bar mitzvahed and confirmed, yes.
Maybe it was too much religion.
Well, any religion is too much religion. So basically what happened was I was bar mitzvahed, and I gave this... I was an outed atheist, okay? My parents both knew I was an atheist. My father still had not told me he was an atheist.
Oh, wow.
My parents both knew I was an atheist, and I had to get up there and do that thing anyways. And so I went up there and I did that thing. And I lied to everybody in my entire universe. My entire universe was in front of me, and I lied to all of them. And they all told me how great I was afterwards. They all told me how wonderful I was. They all gave me money and presents and congratulated me.
Friends,
and I had
family,
lied.
community, right.
Yeah, and I had lied. So I felt guilty about lying. And then I started wondering how many of them were lying and whether or not the rabbi was lying.
Oh, wow.
Who else was lying? Because that's what a bar mitzvah is. You lead a service. How many services have been led by people who were lying? I didn't like the lie, and I felt that it was a dirty thing, you know. So this was like a major point. The bar mitzvah was supposed to be a major point in a Jewish boy's life. Well, in this atheist boy's life, it was a major point because I realized how much of a lie religion is. Then there was confirmation. Now, you may look at me funny and you say, wait, Jews don't have confirmations. But they do. If, of course, the Jewish synagogue wants more money from the parents, they have confirmation. That's when all your good Jewish boys and girls go to school for another 2 years, twice a week, 2 hours a day, and then they do that for 2 years, and then they get confirmed as a really, really good Jew. So the problem was I had been accepted at a prep school in New Hampshire. So I couldn't go to Hebrew school. I could not. Physically impossible. Sorry, Mom, can't do this. Rips my heart apart that I can't go to Hebrew school anymore. Too bad. Don't worry. My mother had a plan because her boy was a good Jewish boy as far as everybody else was ever going to learn. So she made a deal with the synagogue that said, if I did a project away at school, and if my mother paid for classes anyways, I could graduate and get my confirmation just like a good little Jewish boy. And so for 1.999 years, I thought nothing about this project.
Yeah.
And then it came to turn it in. Came to the deadline. I went to the school office. I took a piece of paper. Just a piece of copier paper. And I want you to understand, I didn't care, and I have no artistic talent at all. Okay? I can do lots of things. I can stand up in front of millions of people and speak well. I can't draw a picture. I have no artistic talent. I took a piece of copier paper, and I took a coffee can, and I put it on the copier paper, and I drew a circle around the can. And I took the can off, and I colored with colored pencils. I colored in a globe, put a hand holding up the globe, and it looked awful. I must have spent 20 minutes, okay? 20 minutes on this thing, on this awful joke of a project, okay? That was my whole project, a hand holding up a picture of the world. That's what I sent in for my final project that was supposed to compensate for 2 years, twice a week, 2 hours a day. And they accepted it. Not a comment, not an issue. I went in. I even missed rehearsal for the graduation ceremony. I walked in, I walked up, I got my thing, I came down, I sat down next to my friend. Her name was Dara. We had gone to Hebrew school all since kindergarten. I was just coincidentally sitting next to her, and I opened my certificate and I looked at it, and it was exactly the same time that Dara opened hers and looked at it, and lo and behold, they were identical. I had gotten a real deal. I had gotten a wonderful deal. And that's where I realized how much of a scam all of it was, because the school cared nothing about what I learned or what I knew or what I believed. They cared about the money and nothing more.
That's an amazing story. I haven't heard a story like that.
So it was my it was not my religious education that made me an atheist. It was my religious education that made me an anti-theist. Mm-hmm. It made me understand the evil, the base scam that is religion. Mm-hmm. And I think that part of the religious education surely backfired on me. That's how I grew up.
That's very interesting. That really is an amazing story. Your atheism today, is it based on, well, you kind of covered, but is it based on a lack of belief in biblical stories, a lack of scientific evidence, or maybe feeling that religious people are pushy and liars?
It's not about religious people. It's not about religious people being pushy and liars. The religious people aren't the liars. The atheists pretending to be the religious people are the liars. Wow. Okay? The atheism is based on the fact that it's a lie. If you took and I made this statement a few times, several times in public, and nobody could challenge me on this. Nobody has challenged me on this. If you took all of the evidence, all of the scientifically valid evidence for all of the religions ever practiced by humans and put it into one place, you'd have nothing. Nothing. Zero, zip, nothing. If it was not nothing, I would quit. I would quit. All we need is one piece of evidence. And in the history of mankind, there has been none. Oh, look at the sunset. Look at the babies being born. I feel it in my heart. There's tons of that. but there's no evidence. And that's really the driver here. The fact is that this is supposed to be so obvious, supposed to be so loving, supposed to be so omnipotent God, or group of gods, and none of it has any evidence. Tells me it's all a scam, all of it, without exception.
Could a God exist? Like, are you open to the possibility that a God could exist, or have you made up your mind God does not exist?
Both. Both. I have made up my mind that gods don't exist. I've also made up my mind that Santa Claus doesn't exist. Could Santa Claus exist? Yes. When he lands on my roof, I will believe in him. And
you better
when
have
somebody,
cookies.
What?
You better have cookies and milk.
I better have cookies. But when any God, have I decided, concluded that there are no gods? Yes, of course I have. There are no gods. There's never been a God. There never will be a God. There are no gods. Gods are myths. I'm sure of it. But if a God actually appears, I'll change my mind. I'm just as sure that there are no gods as I am sure that there is no Santa Claus or Easter Bunny or Tooth Fairy. And nobody can give me a single reason why those four things should not be equated.
Is it similar to, like, the possibility of there, like, say I tell you that there's an alien civilization on Mars, and right now, with the information you have, you'd say, well, I don't believe that. But if somehow we had a satellite and I was able to show you, actually, there happens to be this alien, then you would believe it. But up until this point, the information we have, you don't believe it. Is it kind of like that?
It's worse than that, because an alien civilization on Mars doesn't break all the known laws of physics. Okay? A God breaks all known laws of physics. So it's beyond that. I think you're getting pretty close when you're talking about an alien situation on Mars. You're getting to the Russell's teapot analogy. And yes, that works. Yes, that's there. But it's another level beyond that. Because the teapot orbiting Jupiter, even Bigfoot, Bigfoot doesn't break the laws of physics.
Right.
Okay?
Really wouldn't
I
make
don't
a
believe in
difference, yeah.
Bigfoot. There's no evidence for it. But he doesn't break all the laws of physics. If you're talking about a deity, a being that lives outside of the universe and can make things appear and disappear, create energy and take it away, create matter and take it away, this breaks all known laws of physics. And guess what? We're not stupid enough. We're not stupid. We're not ignorant. We know what the laws of physics are, or at least we have a very good idea about them. And so if you're talking about odds and chances, you're talking about something that not only has no evidence, has zero evidence, but you're talking about something that breaks everything we know.
All the evidence we have.
You're talking about all of the rules that we know. Everything that we know is wrong. And if you're going to say that everything we know is wrong, I'm going to ask you for evidence for that. And if you're going to say, well, there's never been any evidence in the history of mankind, I'm going to tell you you're full of shit. That's what it is.
Do you think that a certain amount of religious people are well-intended? I mean, you mentioned the scams, but there are some that are well-intended and everything.
I want to make it clear, okay? Religious people aren't evil. Religious people aren't stupid, okay? They're victims of brainwashing, okay? They can be well-intentioned or bad-intentioned. They can be good people or bad people. But if they believe in an invisible man in the sky, they are victims of indoctrination, victims of brainwashing, and they need to be treated that way. They do not need to be. I mean, people come to me and they say, I have this friend, and he's a doctor, and he's really, he has this education, and he's got this, and he's got all these papers, and he believes in God. How could he be so stupid? Well, he's not stupid. He's a victim of brainwashing, and that makes it easier for people to believe stupid things even when they're smart. That's what religion does. It makes you believe stupid things when you're smart. It makes you do bad things when you're good. Okay? That's what religion does. It's a poison. So I do not have this animosity toward religious people. I have pity for them.
Without there being judgment and an afterlife, does it seem that you could, okay, so if religious people believe if I do something wrong in this life and I get away with it, in the next life maybe I'll have to pay for it. Like, does that seem appealing? I mean, without there being that afterlife or that judgment, you know, maybe you could get away with something. You know, I could do something to someone and get away with it. Arguably, D.B. Cooper got away with it, and the Zodiac Killer. You know, that, like, would it be better with an afterlife and with judgment?
Well, I think it would be better if there were no crimes. I think it would be better if we were more ethical people. But I think we have to understand is that religious people are doing bad things, and atheists are doing bad things sometimes, good things sometimes. If you look at the prison populations, if you look at the crime rates, the people who are doing the bad things are by and large the people who believe in a God. So the correlation doesn't work. People who are a-religious or atheistic are less likely to commit a crime. So the idea that an afterlife prevents you, an afterlife threat, however idle it may be, prevents you from doing a crime doesn't seem to be true. Yeah, and so there's no data to back that up. Now, you asked a specific question. You asked, would it be good if, or would it be better if? I suppose it would be. You know, I mean, I certainly want to live forever. I want to live forever. I want all the good guys to go to heaven. I want all the bad guys to be punished in a just but reasonable way. I want all that to happen, but it's not real. So how much I want it isn't relevant. What is relevant is the fact that it's not real, that this is our life. And that the threat of hell does not seem to be stopping Christians from committing crimes. Because there's a lot of Christians in jail. Far more per capita than there are atheists. So I'm not seeing the argument, I'm not seeing the data.
If there is no God and there is no punishment and there's no afterlife, can we do whatever we want?
No. We can't do whatever we want. We are a social animal. We have laws. We have a social construct around our behavior. You know, a lot of people say, well, where do you get your morals from if you don't have a God? And if you don't have religion? And what I tell them is a trick question. I tell them that I'm going to tell you a trick, I'm going to ask you a trick question. And they say, okay. And I say, if you were in your church and your pastor said something wholly immoral that you found really repugnant, the rest of the crowd was all right with it, but you didn't like it at all. You thought it was immoral. What would you do? And some people say, well, I would leave the church. Some people say, I would talk to the preacher. I would ignore it. I would think about it. I would pray about it. Nobody says, that's impossible. My morality comes from my church. Nobody answers that way. And that's because your morality doesn't come from your church. Your morality comes from your social construct in which you were raised. The church takes credit for it. You're a good person because of me. You owe me. If it weren't for me, you'd be a bad person. It's a lie. People swallow it. But they swallow it because they're told not to question their religion. But when we're talking about morality, the important thing to remember is that religion doesn't give morality. It just says it gives morality. The morality comes from here. I'm an atheist. I don't kill people. Okay? But Christians kill people. Does that mean Christianity causes people to kill people? No. It means it has nothing to do with it. Good people are good, bad people are bad, and in general. And then religion is part of the society that brings it up. So some people can kill for religious reasons, but for in general, when we're talking about in general morality, religion just tells you that you're good because of it. And it's not just Christianity, all of it does that. It takes the credit for where it's not due. That's what religion does.
Did you ever deal with a fear of hell or a fear of punishment or anything like that? Because some people, even like Matt Dillahunty talks about, even atheists, even some people who have been atheists for 20 years, they still have nightmares about hell, or they're still like, what if? Or
Sure. Well, that's an indoctrination, right? That's holdover from an indoctrination. That's holdover from a brainwashing. It's akin to PTSD. Did it ever affect me? No, because number one, I never believed in it. Number two, Jews don't have hell.
No.
So it was never pushed on me. and I never believed it in the first place, so no, it doesn't affect me. But yeah, I've heard it many times of atheists who still have, and it's part of the evil that is religion.
As far as for the American Atheists, for the organization, what are the concerns of the organization, and what stereotypes of atheists do you want to confront and correct?
The biggest and most important stereotype that we're trying to confront and correct is that there are no atheists. That's the biggest problem. A lot of people think that atheism is a very small percentage of the population. This is in part due to the fact that so many atheists call themselves different things. Agnostics, humanists, skeptics. Yes, skeptics. Yeah, they call themselves whatever they want, so they don't have to use the A word. So when they go on polls, they say, "Oh, look, there's only 2% that are atheists." No, we're about 15 to 20% of this population, but a large percentage of us do the worst thing and answer differently. They say some of them even call themselves Christians and Jews because they don't like to be called atheists. So what we have to do is raise atheism so that we can bring more people out of the closet as atheists, so we can raise atheism further. The end game is atheist normalcy, where people aren't ashamed to come out as atheists, where people are proud to be atheists, and where you can get elected to office as an atheist and it's no big deal. That's our end game: atheist equality, atheist normalcy.
When you think about it, it just shouldn't be. Someone shouldn't be. But should we maintain religious freedom?
Of course.
Why? Because it's very interesting because
this is
religion is a scam. Religion is evil. Religion this.
And this is where we get into the difference between being an American and being a humanist, being an atheist. Okay. And I want to define myself now. I am an atheist. I always call myself an atheist. Whenever anybody asks me what I am, I'm an atheist because I'm not afraid of the word. However, humanism exists. I am a humanist as well, and I feel that is something that I feel very strongly about being a humanist. At the same time, I never call myself a humanist because nobody knows what it means. Okay, so as a humanist, I want religion obliterated. I want it gone. It's a scam. It costs money. It hurts people. It doesn't need to exist. As a humanist, it's better for humans. It's better for people if religion were obliterated. And some people have asked Dawkins, and I think they asked Hitchens, if they could snap a finger and obliterate religion, would they do it? As a humanist, I definitely would. But I'm also an American.
Mm-hmm.
And in America, we all have our freedoms. And we must defend those freedoms, even if we disagree with them. So we have this mythology. We have this culture. It's real. It's there. I disagree with it as much as I disagree with, astrology, psychic readings, special rocks and crystals and crap. It's all scams. It's all a scam. Would the world be better if it were all eliminated? Yes. But, as an American, I have to allow people to be different. And I have to recognize that there's value in diversity. And I have to recognize that there's value in tradition. Only there is there value in religion.
Have you ever thought, now, and of course I'm not accusing you of wanting to, it's part of the freedom thing, but have you ever thought this scenario would be better? Imagine if we somehow this is a hypothetical. You can't teach someone about religion until they're 21 years old. Uh-huh. My reasoning for this, maybe they've had some scientific study. They certainly would be less likely to be indoctrinated like children. Do you think an idea like that? If we were able to do that,
I think there should be. I think it should be considered morally repugnant to indoctrinate a child into a religion. Should you have to get a card before you have your 21st birthday before you get religion? No, because that's just not feasible. Parents are going to teach their kids. Okay, that's just going to happen. What we have to do is make sure that the schools are well educated enough to teach critical thinking to the children, so that they can see through their parents' crap. And that's just the fact of it. And that is the reason that the schools are, that's the reason that the religions are anti-schooling right now. And they have been. Because the more educated you are, the less religious you are. Everybody knows it, including religions.
I'm sure you're very familiar with the Bible, and obviously, I'm sure you've read the Bible, you've studied the Bible, and I'm sure you're aware of kind of the crazy stuff in the Bible and everything. What really intrigues me, sometimes when people talk about their high moral character and they always do the right thing, they will accredit it to the Bible. Mm-hmm. Have you encountered situations like this?
Of course, that's what they're told to do.
So, and I was going to say, why, the Bible has murder, the Bible has all these things, I've heard people say, oh, I'm going to wait to have sex until I'm married because it's in the Bible. Do you know why people would, you've heard things like this, I do the right thing because of the Bible.
Yeah, sure.
Why would someone say that? I mean,
well, because they've been indoctrinated. First of all, they haven't read the Bible. Okay, I would go out on a limb and say 99.9% of the people who say that have not read the Bible, and that's why I always tell people to read the Bible. I always tell Christians to read the Bible because there's a lot of stuff that's in the Bible, and you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it. If anybody actually obeyed the Bible, they'd go to jail. You're talking about stoning people for breaking the laws, for working on the Sabbath. Okay, that's like everybody. It's what they get at Sunday school. Again, you're a good person because of what's in the Bible, and good people do exactly what this is, and that means having a sexual pattern that clearly, prohibits masturbation, prohibits birth control, and prohibits non-marital sex. Those three together make Christians. Okay? Compare those together, that makes Christian babies. Lots and lots of them. People have to see that this is part of the scam. They make it moral to make more Christians. They make it immoral to doubt Christianity. That's the little bit that they add on. They say, you're a good person, and only to be a great person, all you have to do is exactly what we say, and starting with give us money. and that's unfortunately part of the brainwashing that people get, and they get it from when they're very, very young. And it's pathetic. Then they start equating, I don't masturbate, with moral behavior, right? I don't masturbate is now the same, in the same category as helping an old lady across the street, or not killing somebody, right?
Right.
Not masturbating is in that group because Jesus, right? And not using birth control is in that group because Jesus. And of course we all know that condoms cause AIDS because Jesus. It's all part of the scam, and when I hear that coming from people, all I can think of is that I'm talking to a victim.
It's interesting. When we think about the future, sometimes it does seem like things are getting better. There are, Richard Dawkins has his following, and it seems like there are more skeptical and educated people getting the message out. But at the same time, there are nations like Iran and Pakistan and Afghanistan. There are nations with millions of people, and sometimes they seem to have millions of intolerant people who would probably fall into the category that you're talking about.
Of course.
Question is, do you think things are getting better or worse?
In the country or in the world?
I guess both.
In the world, I don't know. Okay? In the world, I don't know. The growth of Islam is very concerning, and the pathetic acquiescence of some countries in Western Europe to that is extremely discouraging. The fact that there are laws in England against offending Islam or offending people does nothing but legitimize their terroristic threat on freedom of speech.
Because they see they're making progress.
Of course. And it's working. You can't say anything against Islam in England because it offends people. So guess what? Islam goes unopposed, uncriticized. That's horrible. That's bad. And that's a very, very dangerous thing. Now, in America, things are going to get better. In America, we are seeing religion in its last throes. The poll after poll after poll shows atheism is growing. We're the fastest growing religious segment in all 50 states, and all of our growth is coming from the young, and it keeps increasing. in 20 years, we're going to be a third to 40% atheist in this country. And that's going to change everything. Maybe even more. And that assumes no growth. That just assumes aging. That doesn't even assume growth. So I am very encouraged for this country, and I'm very concerned for the rest of the world.
I probably feel the same way. Why do you think people, and this is really what started me on, because I grew up Catholic, and I didn't really think to, and like sometimes with religious people, it's just a little part of your life, and you go on with your day, and then you go to church. But what really got me interested is when people would take offense if I saw things differently. For example, say they were talking about the Noah's Ark story, and not even saying, does God exist? We agree God exists, but did Noah's Ark happen? And I would say maybe it didn't happen, and they get angry and like start threatening me and everything.
Right.
Why do you think people are like that? Like I have no problem, and I have not decided whether I'm going to be an atheist or whether I'm going to. I honestly, I'm thinking it over. I have this project. I haven't decided, but if someone disagrees, I'm not going to get angry at them. Like,
right.
Why do you think people get angry if you disagree with their religious beliefs?
That is part of the brainwashing. The brainwashing begins with you are a Christian, you are a Jew, you are a Muslim. That starts when you're a baby. And when you criticize any of that, people look at that and they say, oh, you're criticizing me. That's part of the brainwashing. That's a very big part of the brainwashing. That's why people get angry. When you say, would you doubt me? Well, that first of all, there's a whole lot of psychological things going in there, right? Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, if they get angry, that means you're really hitting them on a nerve. That means you're probably threatening when you threaten religion, you threaten eternal life. So now they're going to die. Now everybody else is going to die. Now their loved ones who are already dead are really dead. So when you threaten a Christian, when you attack a religion, and you get anger back, and you get anger out like that, I think you're hitting that wall. You're hitting that very, very precariously balanced wall that can be shattered, and people are fighting you for it because they want the fantasy. Mm-hmm. Because they want the brainwashing. But that is part and parcel of the brainwashing, to hate the outsider, to hurt the outsider even, or to shun the outsider, because the outsider will bring you information that will make you an outsider.
Do you have any friends that are religious? Is that an issue? Or
my wife is Jewish, mm-hmm. And she believes in God, and we've been married for 23 years now. It's not a big issue. Because I love my wife. I have a lot of friends. Most of my friends are atheists at this point. However, I do have a few friends that are, I have a couple of Muslim friends, a couple of Christian friends. And, we'll get into it if we want to over a glass of beer or wine. But for the most part, we avoid the subject because we know that it's going to get us into trouble. Mm-hmm. Now, as a good person, as a humanist, I want to start those conversations. I want to plant those seeds, because I want my friends to be free of the crap that's in their brain.
It's funny, some of the questions I was going to ask you kind of already answered. Like I was going to say, why would someone hate you for being an atheist? It's kind of what you said before, like you're threatening their entire life. You're
threatening their
changing
fantasy.
their mindset. Exactly, yeah.
I'm threatening the fantasy.
The other thing, maybe if you tell someone you're wrong, they may misinterpret that as you're stupid or something.
Right. Well, they have been told by their religions that atheists think they're stupid.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, where they're trying to demonize us. They're trying to talk crap about us. They insult us so that when we say we disagree, they can take it as aggression.
What do you think of people like Ken Miller? There are many scientific people who are also devout Christians. Like there are people that seem to know evolution, know as much as we possibly can know about the Big Bang, and understand it, and not, they believe it. They believe it happened, and they still come away believing in God. Do you have any thoughts on that? Or?
Well, first of all, again, these are brainwash victims. Okay, these are victims who have been indoctrinated into being into such a point that they discount all of their training mm-hmm. and go with invisible man in the sky. I'm reminded,
or maybe God, like I think Ken Miller with evolution, he says God was moving it along or something.
Well, and you can see they're trying to fit it in. They don't want to dump their worldview. They understand there's absolutely no evidence for an invisible magic man in the sky. Every scientist will tell you there is no evidence for a man in the sky. None. Ever. But they still believe it. Why? Because they put their science off to the side. Now, I'm reminded of the Ken Ham debate. Okay? And the Ken Ham debate with Bill Nye, Bill Nye brought up a big piece of ice from the South Pole. And it had rings in it from the seasons. And you could count the rings. And there was like 100,000 rings. So you could count the years. It was arithmetic to say, this is proof that the Earth is more than 6,000 years old. We've got 100,000 years of evidence right here. You can count the rings like counting the rings on a tree. And the scientists who have been so indoctrinated would say, no, God put it there. Right? It's crap, and it's obviously apologetics.
Right?
It's obviously trying to preserve nonsense. Any scientist who is a young Earth creationist, any scientist who believes in God, has dismissed the scientific process, has dismissed the scientific method in favor of mythology, in favor of fantasy. That's bad science. I don't care where their rank is, I don't care what they do for a living. Any scientist who dismisses the scientific method for mythology so that mythology can be preserved is a bad scientist.
How do we approach, I mean, because obviously we're dealing with a mystery, how did the universe get created, right? And as far as I know, we still don't know, I mean, and even questions like, if we know the Big Bang happened here, what happened before, how do we approach those questions?
Oh, we leave it to people who know far more than you or me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I mean, when we're talking about before the Big Bang, we're talking particle physics. Mm-hmm. We're talking astrophysics. For that, the thing to take away from this is that I don't know is a legitimate final answer. Okay? It's a legitimate answer. We don't know. Mm-hmm. And I could pick up a book and I could parrot to you, the particle at the end of the universe. I could parrot to you A Universe from Nothing by Lawrence Krauss. You should really ask them. I understand those books to a point. But the end answer is, I don't know. We don't know. We're still learning. We're still trying to figure it out. But ignorance is not evidence. The fact that we don't know doesn't mean
we assume God did it, right?
Right. That's a silly thing to do.
Does it annoy you more that I'll be honest, what annoys me is when people act like it's like my parents say we believe in God, but there are people that say they act like it is a fact, and how could you not like? Is that really what annoys you?
What is a fact?
Like that God did this, and we're here because of God, and
sure, that's brainwashing right there. They can't even. There's no fact. There's no reason to believe it's fact, other than the fact that they want it to be there, and they were indoctrinated as children 99% of the time. That's the religion in which they were raised, to give them that fact, and they know it in their heart. That's their evidence. That's why they're so sure. These people who are doing this. I mean, I'm the president of American Atheists. I won't say, I won't even go to that extent about God. I won't say it's a proven fact that there are no deities. I will say it's a proven fact that there's such a preponderance of evidence against a deity that we should consider it a zero proposition. But it's not it's not an actual zero proposition. It's a 0.000001. A.C. Grayling calls it vanishingly small, which is a great phrase, but it's not zero. And that's skepticism, right? A skeptic is always open to new evidence to prove him wrong. That's the correct way to be.
Are you open to, like, say scientists said, there might be something to this God thing, we're researching it, or would you go with an open mind?
No. No. If a scientist says we're researching God, I'm going to say, have a good time, go research God. When a scientist comes back to me and says, here is scientifically valid, duplicatable proof that there's an entity outside of the realm of science that can create and destroy energy, create and destroy matter, and lives forever but was never born, I'll look at it.
Sam Harris does some speculating. He says, like, maybe, and this is a question I would have too. Like, we could probably all agree that the God of the Bible didn't happen, and it isn't there. But maybe there's something else that wasn't proposed. I think Sam Harris, we might be in on a joke when we die. Like we all kind of send ourselves here for a test or something. Like, would you be willing to speculate that maybe there's something else to
Not
life?
without evidence. Now we're playing games now. An old friend of mine used to say we're smoking hopium because we hope there's something out there. Look, without a reason to believe in something silly and outrageous, don't believe something silly and outrageous. You want to say, okay, maybe we sent ourselves here, maybe we're in a computer simulation, maybe we're in the Matrix. You can go there, but without a reason to believe it, you're just believing a fantasy. That's exactly what you're doing.
Well, maybe not believe it, but like speculating.
On fantasy. You are fantasizing. Maybe there's more. Let's give that some relevance. Let's give that some reality, some level of reality above zero, even though I just made it up. It's fantasy. And that's a fact. That's why Richard Dawkins called it a delusion. You're believing fantasy, and you're giving relevance to fantasy. There is no outside. There is no other realm. There is none of that. That's crap. People made that crap up to make themselves feel better because they like the fantasy. They want there to be something more than the 100 years that we have on this world. They want more life. That's natural. But believing in a fantasy is not sane.
I had this next question I try to ask in all my interviews. I had a friend who was an atheist, and when 9/11 happened here, I don't know if you were in this area, but it certainly became a topic of discussion. And he and I were talking about Muslim suicide bombers thinking that they're going to get virgins in heaven or whatever. He said and he was an atheist. He thought when you die, that's it, and he said these suicide bombers, they don't even get a second to be disappointed. And my question to him, and I'm going to ask you, do you kind of wish that they could be disappointed? Do you kind of wish that, be it whatever, that, somehow they, maybe if for just a minute they could realize that they were wrong, like, do you wish they could be disappointed somehow?
I really wish they could be not brainwashed in the first place. To begin with, yeah. Yeah, I'm not the kind of person that likes to say, "See, I told you," because that's exactly what that is. "See, I told you." I'm not so much of a "see, I told you" person as I am a "let's stop this from happening in the future" person. Let's hopefully, if I had my choice about those suicide bombers, it wouldn't be that they realized that they were wrong after they crashed their planes in the building. It would be that they were raised in a healthy environment that didn't prepare them to kill themselves while they were killing thousands of innocent people in the name of Allah.
What should the world know?
By the way, I would like to mention that Allah is a false god. Muhammad is a pedophile, warmongering false prophet. Yes, thank you.
Well, glad I'll make sure that.
Just wanted to put that on the record.
What should the world know about Madalyn Marie O'Hare?
She was a hero. She was not a perfect person, but she was a brave person. She sacrificed a lot, more than I've sacrificed, more than anybody really alive today in the movement has sacrificed. And she did it for principle, and she did it for freedom. And I stand on huge shoulders. A lot of people say, well, she was such a bitch, she was so nasty, she was so rude. She was probably all of those things. She was also a hero who put her life on hold and changed this country as an atheist. And she did it not only as an atheist, but as a woman in the 50s and 60s. This was a powerful person who I really wish I'd met. But I think that she should be remembered for what she succeeded in doing and the risks that she took, the time she spent being harassed by the law, the time she spent being harassed, literally by almost everyone she knew, all of her neighbors, the times she was pushed out of city and city and city. She needs to be recognized for that. No, she does not need to be deified. She does not need to be cloaked in anything of what she wasn't. You know, she was a human, and she had her issues, as do we all. So I don't put her on a pedestal and say she was a perfect person. I put her on a pedestal and say she was a very brave woman who achieved much for the good of this country.
Interesting. Let's say someone's just coming out of, like, you know, a lot of people don't have the same story that you have, like, in the sense that you realize you were an atheist so early on. I mean, many people go through their lives, and in fact, many of the atheists I've met, they were Christian or whatever until they were 30, 31. If someone's just coming out of the initial stages where they're starting to question their religion, do you have any advice for them? Like, what should they do? Should they read something? Should they...
Okay, so if they're just coming out...
today's the first day I'm thinking, gee, is there really a God? Like...
Okay, so the first thing they should do is really, really, really read their Bible.
Oh.
Okay? Really read it. You know, open it up. Don't pick out passages. Don't read it in a group. Don't read it with assistants. Don't read it with a study guide. Read it like a book, beginning to end. And tell me if you think it's divine. Tell yourself, ask yourself if you think it's divine. Ask yourself if there's a perfect moral code in there. Ask yourself if those words were written by God or by people motivated by God, or were they written by separate, illiterate or barely literate old men who were bent on controlling people. Sexist, misogynistic, awful people by today's standards. Ask yourself who wrote
How about it was okay for that culture and that context?
Of course. Well, it was that culture. Okay? It was
it's
part of that culture.
That's the excuse. Sometimes when there's stoning or some violence, they say for that time it made sense or something. I don't know.
It didn't make sense, but it was understandable because that's what people did back then. The reason that slavery isn't banned in the Bible is because slavery was moral during the Bible. The reason that misogyny is rampant in the Bible is because misogyny was moral when the Bible was written. That's why. That's why the book is not a perfect source of morality. It's an anchor in yesterday's morality. And that's why as the morality of the world progresses, as people are allowed to get married no matter who they love, as, black people get to marry white people now and have mixed race children, and women get the vote. All of this progress has been pulled back and slowed down because this anchor in the Bible says, no, that's bad. And they can find places where it says, no, that's bad. Slavery was preserved because it's in the Bible. Slaves obey your masters, even the most cruel. Gee, there should be absolutely no black Christians out there because of that phrase. There should be no black Christians out there at all because that's so obvious. But because of the brainwashing that they've received, and their parents and their parents' parents received, there's still black Christians who are obviously practicing the religion that their ancestors were forced to adopt so that they would not rebel against their slave owners. It's right there. You can see it.
You know about the black atheist in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Those guys, yeah. Maybe people, have there been people who were inspired by religion to do good things? Maybe Martin Luther King or Gandhi or, I don't know.
Yeah, there have been people inspired by all sorts of things to do good things. And there have been people inspired by religion to do a lot of bad things. That doesn't make it true. None of that makes it true. None of it makes it right. If I look at a murder, if I look at 9/11, okay, and I look at this tragedy and I do something good for it, and I decide that I'm going to make a statue or a piece of art, a great piece of art that commemorates 9/11. Well, that doesn't make 9/11 a good thing, okay? That still makes 9/11 a horrible, twisted tragedy brought on by brainwashed religious people. And then if you came to me and said, but Dave, look at this great art that was created as a result of 9/11. Surely there's some good in 9/11. I'd slap you on the face. But we do that for religion with this example. Oh, look at, but these people, they made a great painting. That doesn't mean religion is good. That doesn't mean religion is ethical. That doesn't mean religion has a place in today's society. It means religion influences a lot of people, and when you influence a lot of people do things good, a lot of people do things bad with that influence. It's a breadth. It's a matter of volume.
Are there any other figures that you want people to know about, like maybe Don Buckner or
Don Buckner?
Didn't he work with the Atheist organization, or am I do I have
Ed Buckner.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Ed Buckner.
Oops.
Yeah, I'm not telling you said that. Are there other people that people should know? They should know Ed Buckner. They should know Dr. Ed Buckner. He's brilliant. They should know this guy, Robert Green Ingersoll. Okay, if you haven't read Robert Green Ingersoll, you should read Robert Green Ingersoll and Bertrand Russell. Those are some basics. Really, Ingersoll was one of my key influences growing up, because he's the pre-Hitchens. He called himself the great agnostic, but he was just so golden-tongued that I think everybody should read him. And unfortunately, I think not enough people do.
Any comments about your experiences on Fox News?
I like it. I like it. I like going on Fox News. A lot of people ask me why I do it. I do it because I like it. I like it because it accomplishes my goals. It desensitizes atheism to the Christians. It gets Christians talking about atheism. Who are they talking to? They're talking to other people in their family, some of whom might be closeted atheists, so they're spreading our word for us. And what word are they spreading? They're spreading my message that I go on Fox News all the time for: equality. Equality, equality, equality. They put me on in a 2 against 1 and a 3 against 1, and they keep losing.
Yeah, I remember there was a rabbi and a priest. You were in the middle.
And they keep losing. And why do they keep losing? They keep losing because their argument is shit. Their argument is crap. There's nothing. I don't know if I can swear on this.
Yeah,
podcast.
you can.
Their argument is shit. Okay, their argument is literally anti-equality. So if their argument is anti-equality, they're looking like the bad guy, and they're pointing at me saying I'm the bad guy, but all I'm saying is equality. And I think that's why I like going on, because I get to give an equality message and make religious people look bad. It also does something very powerful, which is straight out of Sun Tzu. It gets atheists to watch Fox News. When I go on Fox News, it gets atheists to watch Fox News, and that's important, because we must know our enemy. We must know what we're up against. So many people. I mean, if I hadn't gone on Bill O'Reilly, would we know that they are willing to stoop to changing the definition of the word religion in order to preserve an attack on the separation of church and state? He called a religion a philosophy, not a religion. He called Christianity a philosophy, not a religion. A low blow. And the reason that he did that is because if Christianity is a philosophy, then America can take an official position in it. But if it's a religion, it can't. He's willing to sacrifice the word. He's willing to change the definition so that he can keep and maintain Christian privilege in America. We would not know that if I didn't go on that show. And the people who watch it wouldn't know it.
And you could be prepared for it, right?
We have to know our enemy. We have to know how far they're willing to go. And we only get that when we look. And atheists don't look, because it makes us angry. Mm-hmm. So when I go on Fox News, they look. And it motivates our side while educating theirs. Yeah.
I've seen you talk to regular religious people. I've seen you talk to priests, rabbis. Is there any group or religion that annoys you the most? I mean, you must have... I don't know.
Any
you don't have to answer if you don't want.
Annoys me the most.
Because I remember you actually got into it with the rabbi when you were on Fox News the last time. There was, like I mentioned, there was the priest here and the rabbi here, and you were really arguing with the rabbi. I mean,
well, the rabbi gets on my nerves sometimes. Everybody gets on my nerves sometimes. I would say the presuppositionist Christians are annoying. I'm not going to be dealing with them anymore. The ones who say, well, we believe in God because everybody knows that there's a God and that everybody knows that God exists, and you know that there's a God exists, and we should just start from there. I'm not going to go there. I don't know if there's any group that, I mean, there are certain individuals that annoy me more than others, but I don't know if there's any group that annoys me more than others. It's all it's all crap. I mean, their God is better than their God is better than their God. Oh, all your gods are wrong. My God over here is great. It's all a matter of crap. It's all a matter of who brainwashed you and when. And so it doesn't really bother me one or the other, Christians, Mormons, Jews, Muslims, I don't give a shit. It's all the same to me.
At this point in the interview, if you wanted to ask me any questions, that's usually how I end.
You're a skeptic.
I believe so, yes. I mean, I'm looking at things.
So you're on a journey right now.
I think I am, yes.
Okay, so if you're on a journey, what are going to be your criteria for making your decision?
Like the decision about whether a God exists?
Yeah.
That's a very good question. One of the reasons why I do this project, it's like you said, I'm on a journey. I'm trying to find what I believe. I don't know. I mean, I guess evidence, as you suggested, and what seems plausible. Because, as I said before, we're dealing with a mystery. How did the universe get created? And there are times I think I'm probably with you on saying the Bible, a lot of stuff. I mean, while there might be a couple historical things, most of it didn't happen.
And none of the miracles.
The Bible.
And
none of the miracles. None of the miracles.
Right.
And I would concede that. I still, maybe there's some type of God or some being that started the Big Bang. I hope that's okay. That's my opinion.
It's fine. You don't have to ask my permission. But why do you think that? Or do you just hope it?
That is a good question. I think that because of we don't know how the Big Bang started now, that doesn't mean we assume. I would agree with that. I think that it's still a possibility. I think that maybe...
Why do you think it's a possibility, or do you just wish it were a possibility?
It might be a little bit of... I will admit it might be a little bit of wishing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions... Well, I was going to say... Sometimes I ask if it would be better if there was a heaven, but you kind of already mentioned that, our preference doesn't matter. I will admit it might be a little bit of wishing. Do
you think it might be all wishing?
That is a possibility as well. But we don't know how it started. Do you think it's impossible that there was something that set the Big Bang in motion?
Impossible?
Maybe that's down the...
Impossible is not the question. It's a matter of, do we have any evidence to believe that the laws of physics and mathematics end, and that we have some sort of an uncaused causer that makes it, which sounds a lot like the religions that we both dismiss. So what you're doing is basically grasping at straws. Okay, there's no reason to believe in any God, and I will say that very clearly. There is no reason to believe in a God. So what people do when they grasp at straws, like you're doing right now, is you're trying to look at the God of the gaps. What don't we know?
And we fill it in, right?
We fill it in. That's where God fits. And that is wishful thinking. Believing wishful thinking is not sane. It's not. And I'm just trying to raise your awareness of that.
You can be honest.
I'm not trying to insult you. I'm trying to raise your awareness of the fact that if you look out there, if you think about out there and you say, well, I wish it were true, therefore I'm going to give it relevance. I'm going to give it some semblance of belief and dedication in my brain, completely aware of the fact that there's no reason to believe it. That's not sane. That's a delusion.
Okay, and that's fair. I'm not. You can be honest about that. I think it was Matt Dillahunty who said, because I am going to quote him. I hope I'm not misquoting him, but he said, he does say the time to believe is after there's evidence, but he said he hasn't dismissed it. We still have to find out. He does get annoyed when people act like it's certain that there is a God, but he wants he wants to find out, and it could be maybe. I mean,
but it's not. I mean, it could be maybe is wishful thinking. Okay, could be maybe is a true statement, but it's also wishful thinking because there's no reason to believe could be maybe is true. There's no reason for it. There's just ignorance. There's just I don't know. That's what it is. How did my car get there? Well, I could drive it, but you don't know I drove it. So is it possible that I magically beamed it there? You don't know. Right. You can't prove it's not true. You have no evidence to believe that that's the case, and you don't see any sort of teleportation equipment. In fact, to the best of your knowledge, what I'm proposing is completely against the laws of physics. I'm saying maybe I just snapped my fingers and my car appeared. That's against the laws of physics as we know it. Is it possible? Yes. Are you going to give it really a lie? And when somebody shows you, look, I have a thing that moves cars. When you snap your fingers, it goes there. Then you'll believe. If I tell you, look, I have a thing that moves things from one place to another. Then when I say, I have a thing that sends a car over there, you'll say, all right, well, there's some basis for that.
Some basis, right.
But when you have no basis at all in the history of the planet for anything like that, and you say, no, I believe that Dave snapped his fingers and magically made his car appear, that's delusion.
Mm-hmm.
That's not skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
What skeptical is saying, I don't know, is a right answer, is the correct answer, and saying, maybe it's an invisible magic man in the sky or some sort of permutation thereof, is recognized as the fantasy that it is. And that's all. I don't know. I don't have all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Neither do you. Nobody does. The question is, who is lying about having all the
Mm-hmm.
answers? And who is lying to themselves?
And that's really what you want. You want people to understand that we don't have all the answers, and
But that doesn't mean God did it.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean any God did it. That doesn't mean we abandon the laws of physics and mathematics as we know them. Ignorance of facts is not evidence for fiction. It's fiction.
has anyone suggested maybe God created the laws of physics or something like that?
Of course, they suggest all that stuff. Okay, prove it. Show me. Give me. I mean, maybe Zeus created all the laws of physics. Maybe my fucking car created all the laws of physics. You can't prove it's not true. Maybe my car is sentient. Maybe my car is God. And it's sentient. And it created us right here, right now. Just talking about this and everything that's in the past is all in our memory. You can't prove that's not true. This is all a great big test from my car. You better have faith. If you don't have faith, you're going to go to hell.
And the car put the dinosaur fossils there.
Of course it did. Well, the memory of the dinosaur fossils. Of course, there's absolutely no evidence to back this up, but it could be. Can't prove it's not true. You want to give it relevance? Even though I told you, even if I told you I just made that whole thing up right here, that is not proof positive that it didn't happen.
That is a good point.
Right? So how small do the possibilities have to go before you call it zero? And how silly does an idea have to be before you stop giving it a buy? You just said that there may be a God that started all this, that created the laws of physics, mathematics that govern the universe, that started the Big Bang. There may be. There is no reason to believe that.
Okay.
None. Why would a skeptical person believe that? Why would an intelligent person even give it a second thought?
That's a very good question. I might have to give that some thought.
I hope you do.
Did you have any other questions for me? Or?
No, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being on. I'm going to turn the camera off, but thank you very. If there's
My
any
pleasure, David.
message you wanted to give to skeptics or atheists or religious or anyone.
I'll give a message to the skeptics.
Sure.
You're atheists, okay? If you're a skeptic and a theist, you're bad at one of those things. Every skeptic out there who is an atheist knows they're an atheist. If you're maybe wishy-washy on the God thing, that's a type of atheist. If you're a passionate atheist, that's a type of atheist. If you call yourself an agnostic, that's an atheist. Call yourselves atheists when people ask you what your definition, what your belief in God is. You're not a skeptic. You're very well aware that there are no man in the sky, and you should call themselves that.
All right, no.